Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's January 31st. Today we celebrate the man who found a splendid crabapple growing in his nursery, and the anniversary of a society that honors the flower of the rainbow. We'll learn about the Grand Lady of Canadian horticulture and a Colorado state botanist who fought to protect the columbine. Today's unearthed words will give us simple poems from a Quaker poet. And we grow that garden library with a book about a woman's quest for the world's most amazing birds. I'll talk about a garden item that will help you create words in your garden. And then we'll wrap things up with the incredible story of a gardener who gardened for 9 years in a place most gardeners would deem ungardenable, and he transformed it into a haunting paradise. But first, let's catch up on a few recent events. Today's curated articles begin with a calendula tincture recipe from Mother Earth Living. The authors of this post are Susan Belsinger and Tina Marie Wilcox. They recommend using the tincture as an additive to teas and healing baths. You could also use it as an astringent for cosmetic purposes or to help with wounds. This post shares a number of different recipes from the Herbal Medicine Maker's Handbook. There's a dried calendula tincture and a fresh calendula tincture. Calendula blooms are beautiful in the garden. They have golden petals, and they can be harvested for so many uses. The common name for calendula is pot marigold. You can access this article easily by searching for the word calendula in the Facebook group for the show. Then this article will pop right up. Next up was a post from Botanical Interests. It was all about how to sow and grow artichokes. Artichokes can be grown either as an ornamental or an edible, or both. One post I read on Twitter this past year talked about a local farmer who had tried growing artichokes for the very first time. And when he was asked how it went, he said, "We harvested more knowledge than artichokes. Science is a process of discovery, and so is gardening." If you're interested in growing artichokes, you can check out this article by searching for it in the free Facebook group for the show. Just type in artichoke in the search bar, and this post will pop up. Now, if you'd like to check out these curated articles for yourself, you're in luck, because I share everything I curate in the listener community in the free Facebook group. It's called the Daily Gardener Community. So there's no need to take notes or track down links. That's what the Facebook group is for. All the articles are right there, and they're searchable. Once you're in the group, just head on over to the search bar and you can use that to find any article that you hear about on the podcast. If you'd like to join this group, you can do so by heading up to the very top of the search bar in Facebook, type in Daily Gardener Community, and then request to join. And then I'll get a notification on my phone. I'll admit you into the group, and then you'll have access to all of the articles. And they'll show up in your Facebook feed, and they'll be sprinkled in amongst the beautiful pictures and updates from your friends and family. Now, once you're in the community, feel free to share pictures of your garden, ask questions, share a garden poem or two. I love getting that stuff from you guys. I can't wait to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the nurseryman Melvin Bergeson, who ironically was based in fertile Minnesota. He was born on this day in 1906. After World War II, an employee of Melvin's named Norris Offdahl was walking along a row of trees at the nursery. As expected, all of the trees in the row had succumbed to winter kill, except for one. It stood out and caught Norris's attention. It was a little crabapple tree, and Norris thought the tree might be a mutant variety, so he told Melvin to keep his eye on it. Melvin did, and over the years, Melvin took note of the continued hardiness, which was tremendous, and also the beautiful fruit. Melvin's instincts told him that the tree was something special. He christened the tree Red Splendor in honor of the gorgeous fruit. To test the tree, Melvin sold some of the Red Splendor crab apples to his customers, and he also sent some to other nurserymen so that it could be trialed. Sadly, when Melvin applied to patent the Red Splendor crab, he was denied. The government claimed the tree was already in the public domain. Once it was on the market, the Red Splendor captured people's hearts. One of the best features of a Red Splendor crab is that it doesn't drop fruit over the summer. Instead, the fruit holds on until the following spring. This habit allows birds and animals to eat the apples off the tree all winter long. All that eating by wildlife makes for way less cleanup once the spring arrives, which is one of the main gripes of apple tree owners. With all of the Red Splendor's marvelous features, it's not surprising to learn that the University of Minnesota once regarded it as the best plant created in the state of Minnesota. They could have also recognized Melvin's efforts to market the plant. As it turns out, Melvin was a natural-born marketer and salesman. He came up with clever slogans that were splashed across the cover of his annual nursery brochure, like, "Let's get it done in 71. The hype around the Red Splendor opened opportunities for the crab to appear in impressive landscape installations at venues like the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. A Red Splendor crab even accompanied President Nixon on his trip to China, where it was presented as a gift from America. It's hard to believe, after the thrill of the Red Splendor, that Melvin and his wife Olga started their little nursery in rural Minnesota during the Great Depression in 1937. Their customers were mostly farmers, and their main product was trees, especially windbreak trees and fruit trees. Today, 83 years later, Melvin's nursery is run by his grandson, Joe. The nursery offers a diverse selection of trees, shrubs, and plants. However, Joe's personal passion is hybridizing roses. As far as trees are concerned, one of the nursery's top-selling trees is the Ohio Buckeye tree, which is grown from a nut. And today marks the 100th anniversary of the American Iris Society, which was founded on this day in 1920. The society started out with about 60 eager members. A year later, membership had climbed to nearly 500 people. Today, you can join the Iris Society online at irises.org. The mission of the American Iris Society is to organize and disseminate knowledge of the genus Iris while fostering its preservation, enjoyment, and continued development. Iris takes its name from the Greek word for rainbow, and the iris is known as the flower of the rainbow. When it comes to scent, the roots of the iris contain their fragrance. Although there are around 300 species of iris, bearded iris and Siberian iris are two of the most common types of iris grown. During the Middle Ages, irises were linked to the French monarchy, and the fleur-de-lis is now a national symbol of France. And today is the 55th anniversary of the death of Canada's first professional woman plant breeder, a woman called the Dean of Hybridists and the Grand Lady of Canadian Horticulture, Isabella Preston, who died on this day in 1965. When Vita Sackville West first heard her name, she famously acknowledged, "I must confess, I don't know anything about Miss Isabella Preston of Ottawa." Preston's name had become known internationally as the result of her lily hybrids. In 1919, Isabella bred the renowned George C. Creelman hybrid lily after crossing two lily cultivars from southern China. One was hardy and the other one was fragrant. The result was the Creelman lily, and it was a stunner. Human-sized, it grew to be about 6 feet tall, and it featured a sweet-scented white bloom with pink speckles on its yellow throat. Isabella named the lily after Creelman, the president of the Ontario Agricultural College. Today, there are no known Creelman lilies in existence, although people still search for it. Vita would have loved Isabella's practical and hard-won advice. When a colleague asked Isabella what she would do with her rock garden, her advice was fascinating. Use every bit of rock. Don't be afraid of it. Plant between, atop, or alongside. Presently, you'll be convinced that flowers need near them the harsh stability of the stone. Isabella was a self-taught plant hybridizer. In 1920, she joined the Central Experimental Farm in Ottawa. For almost 3 decades, she endeavored to create more blooms on more disease-resistant plants. She created over 200 cultivars of 6 main different plants, including lilacs, lilies, crabapples, columbine, Siberian iris, and roses. And Preston lilacs are named in her honor, and she received many honors for her work. And today is the anniversary of the death of a Colorado state botanist named Hazel Schmoll, who died on this day in 1990. 100 years earlier, Hazel was born in a sod cabin in McAllister, Kansas in 1890. Her family settled in Colorado when she was just 2 years old. Hazel was the first woman to earn a doctorate in botany from the University of Chicago. Early in her career, Hazel had the exciting opportunity to work with Alice Eastwood. When it came to her beloved Rocky Mountains, Hazel was an active conservationist, and she regularly taught others about the ecology of the mountains. Hazel led the effort to protect the Colorado blue columbine, Aquilegia caerulea. It's also known as the Rocky Mountain columbine. The Colorado blue columbine is a herbaceous perennial with bluish purple and white blooms that appear in spring and early summer. Colorado blue columbine can grow up to 3 feet tall with a spread of about 2 feet. The word aquila is Latin and means eagle, with references to the claw-like spurs on the blossom. The word columbine is derived from the Latin word for dove and refers to this little trick. If you tip the flower over, it looks like 5 little doves huddled together. Columbine. Hazel's favorite flower, the Colorado blue columbine, was first discovered on Pikes Peak in 1820. As the state flower, it has significant symbolic meaning to Colorado. The blue represents the sky, the white represents snow, and the gold is a nod to the state's gold mining history, which attracted so many settlers to Colorado. The Colorado blue columbine is so beautiful that when it became a threatened species after people were digging it up for their rock gardens, legislation was passed in 1925, making it illegal to pick the Rocky Mountain columbine. It was Hazel Schmoll who said, "I hope we can keep some wilderness areas. People need some spaces where they can get away from the crowds and be refreshed by nature." And today is the anniversary of the death of the founder of Miracle Grow plant food, Horace Hagedorn, who died on this day in 2005. Every year on November 15th, the Horace Hagedorn Outstanding Philanthropy Award is given out on Philanthropy Day. Horace was a marketing genius and a philanthropist. A resident of Port Washington, Long Island, Horace and his wife Amy were esteemed for their charity. After Horace died, the Amy Hagedorn Foundation had distributed close to $50 million to more than 175 nonprofits. Aligned with his enormous spirit of generosity, it was Horace Hagedorn who said, "You can't keep taking away from the earth. You must give something back." In unearthed words, today is the birthday of the prolific English Quaker poet Bernard Barton. One of Barton's most famous poems heralds the spring crocus. Here's an excerpt. "Welcome, wild harbinger of spring, to this small nook of earth. Feeling and fancy fondly cling round thoughts which owe their birth to thee, and to the humble spot where chance has fixed thy lowly lot. Yet not the lily nor the rose, though fairer far they be, can more delightful thoughts disclose than I derive from thee. The eye their beauty may prefer, the heart is thy interpreter. Thy flower foretells a summer sky and chides the dark despair, by winter's chilling influence flung over spirits sunk and nerves unstrung." Barton also wrote this whimsical poem for children called The Squirrel. "The squirrel is happy, the squirrel is gay," little Henry exclaimed to his brother. "He has nothing to do or to think of but play and to jump from one bough to another." But William was older and wiser and knew that all play and no work wouldn't answer. So he asked what the squirrel in winter must do if he spent all the summer a dancer. The squirrel, dear Henry, is merry and wise, for true wisdom and mirth go together. He lays up in summer his winter supplies, and then he don't mind the cold weather. And here's an excerpt from Barton's poem called Winter Evenings. The summer is over, the autumn is past. Dark clouds over us hover, loud whistles the blast. But clouds cannot darken nor tempest destroy the soul's sweet sunshine, the heart's purest joy. Our path is no bright one from morning till eve. Our task is no light one till day takes its leave. We'll turn to the pages of history's lore, of bards and of sages, the beauties explore, and share over the records we love to unroll, the feast of the reason and flow of the soul. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Life List by Olivia Gentile. The subtitle to this book is A Woman's Quest for the World's Most Amazing Birds. This book is a loving and beautiful biography of the bird enthusiast Phoebe Snetzinger. Phoebe was a 1950s housewife, married with 4 children, and an avid bird watcher. When she got diagnosed in her 40s with an incurable cancer and given less than a year to live, she started traveling the world, birding, and she never looked back. Phoebe ended up living after her diagnosis for another 18 years. Olivia begins this book by explaining the concept of a life list. She wrote, "Bird watching, the way most people do it, is a lot like hunting, which is why some practitioners prefer the more active-sounding term, birding. You have to know where and when to look for birds. You have to chase them down. And when you find them, you have to figure out what species they are, often in just a second or two before they fly away." Tate, like most birders, kept a life list of all the species he'd seen and identified, and he was always looking to add new ones, or life birds. Olivia wrote, "I decided to write some sort of essay on birding, and I called a few clubs near my home in Manhattan to see what they had going on. One man misunderstood and thought I was interested in joining his club. He tried to encourage me. 'Who knows,' he said, 'maybe you'll be the next Phoebe Snetzinger.' The man had never met Phoebe, but he knew all about her, as most bird watchers do, it turned out. That was back in 2001, 2 years after her death, and I've been piecing together her life ever since." It's a great book. You can get a used copy of Life List by Olivia Gentile and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for under $3. And here's today's great gift for a gardener. This is a pack of wooden letters, a 144-count wooden alphabet letter set that you can use to create signs or to add poetry or words to other pieces in your garden. This letter set contains 144 pieces with 4 pieces of each letter and numbers from 0 to 9, and they're in a natural wood color, and they're ready to be painted. You can spell out things like "Welcome to my garden" or "In the garden," and so forth. These little wooden letters are not quite an inch tall. I used these letters to add little lines of poetry to my picket fence. It turned out pretty cute. You can get your 144-pack of wooden letters and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for $10.99. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Today is the birthday of the English filmmaker, gay rights activist, painter, poet, and gardener, Derek Jarman, who was born on this day in 1942. Born Michael Derek Elworthy Jarman, gardeners remembered Derek for sharing his experiences in the garden, intermingled with his thoughts on life. Most gardeners have a sensitivity about them, especially when it comes to attuning to themselves, to others, or to the natural world. Derek was continually examining all of these aspects of life. Toward the end of his life, Derek had found a little retreat in a place that many would find challenging to love, in the only desert in England, located in Kent, in an area called Dungeness. Derek lovingly called it Ness. It's a hard and harsh place that has an ancient feel. The meaning of the name Dungeness is from the Old Norse, which means headland. The French etymology would translate to dangerous nose. The landscape at Dungeness is referred to as a shingle beach. It's a British way of saying it has a rocky or pebbled shore. It's a curiously understated term that does not adequately convey the harsh reality. A shingle beach means the ground is covered everywhere, without exception, with little rocks and pebbles. A shingle beach is sharp and shocking. It's stone confetti as far as the eye can see. It's a place where if you were barefoot, you would involuntarily find yourself saying, "Ouch, ouch, ouch, ouch," as you walked your way to your Land Cruiser so you could get the heck out of Dodge. And just to be clear, it's not the place where Dungeness crab are found. Dungeness crab are a West Coast species, ranging from the Aleutian Islands in Alaska all the way down to Southern California. Jarman's Shingle Beach at Dungeness is a resting place for relics and debris. It's a junker's paradise. There are boats, parts of boats, driftwood, chunks of metal, and scrap, just laying there on the shore. If Dungeness had a Statue of Liberty, the placard would read, "Give me your rusted, your broken, your abandoned boats and weathered pieces of wood, yearning to get out of the sea." For Derek, all of these items were gifts from the sea to be lovingly received during an early morning walk. He'd bring all of his finds back to Prospect Cottage, where Derek would insert them into the shingle. There they transformed, no longer debris, but artifacts turned into art and proudly displayed in their final resting spot in Derek's garden. Once your eyes drift past all of the treasures from the sea installed firmly in Derek's landscape, you can't help but spy the man-made mountain that forms the backdrop to Dungeness, a nuclear power plant. There are actually 2 nuclear power plants in Dungeness. Like the bits and bobs that Jarman placed around his shingle cottage garden, the nuclear plants rise out of the shingle beach as if to say, even though nobody wants me, I've managed to find a place here among the rocks. I'm home. Prospect Cottage has managed to survive on Dungeness for over 100 years. It was a fisherman's cottage built in 1910, and it was still standing when Jarman bought it back in 1985, mainly because it's covered in a preservative, black tar. That's right. Prospect Cottage is painted top to bottom in black tar. There are two standout features that define Derek's black tar cottage: bright yellow trim around the windows and wooden letters. The yellow trim is bold and calls to mind school buses, sunshine, and daisies. The wood letters are also painted with black tar and are attached to the side of the cottage. They scream, "This is an artist's residence," and "Read me." The letters were attached to a bump out that Derek added on one side of the cottage for extra space. Derek wrote, "Dawn can be a miracle, the sun floating up from the sea and slowly crossing the garden. As it passes, it can laugh with John Donne, whose poem fills the southern wall of the house." The wooden letters attached to Prospect Cottage spelled out verses from the beginning and the end of John Donne's poem, The Sun Rising. It's a poem that challenges the sun. Stop the sunshine from hitting your bed in the morning, and you don't have to get up. You can stop the march of time. And what is more powerful than time? Love. And that's what this poem is about. Imagine the sun, its rays hitting the tarred wooden letters, and having to read this in-your-face challenge every day. Busy old fool, unruly sun, why dost thou thus, through windows and through curtains, call on us? Must to thy motions lovers' seasons run? Saucy, pedantic wretch, go chide late schoolboys and sour prentices. Go tell court huntsmen that the king will ride. Call country aunts to harvest offices. Love all alike, no season knows nor clime, nor hours, days, months, which are the rags of time. At the end of the poem, John Donne is resigned to the fact that time must march on, but he intends to make the most of it. He puts the sun to work, warming his bed and lighting the room, ordering, "Since thy duties be to warm the world that's done in warming us, shine here to us, and thou art everywhere. This bed thy center is, these walls thy sphere." Not many people would put a poem on the side of their house, but then not many people would garden in a stone desert or prefer to spend their final days in a little cottage painted in black tar under the gaze of a nuclear power plant. Clearly, not many people are like Derek Jarman. One time, my mom was shopping on a dreary day, and she commented on the bleak weather to a woman who replied, "That's why we have to carry the sunshine in our hearts, dear." That's what Derek Jarman did. Only a card-carrying member of the Sunshine Club could see the beauty of the Ness. Only Derek Jarman would attempt, let alone create, a garden chock full of color at Prospect Cottage. Derek planted resilience in his garden. Known tough guys and survivors like California poppy, opium poppies, dark red valerian, pink foxgloves, blue viper's bugloss, giant sea kale, gorse, sky blue cornflower, Santalina, pale blue devil's bit scabious, and purple lavender. And somehow Derek managed to convince all these plants that his garden, set in stone and whipped by salt winds, was their happy place. For 9 years, it was Derek's happy place as well. Derek wrote, "The postman arrives with a smile and a huge pile of letters from every corner of the globe, often addressed just to Derek of Dungeness, wishing me well and happy, which I am. The garden has been both Gethsemane and Eden. I am at peace." Today, Prospect Cottage is not open or closed to the public. It just is, and visitors are free to walk the landscape because, as Derek would agree, the garden is the landscape. Derek's last book, published after he died, was Derek Jarman's Garden. Derek's friend Howard Suley took the pictures, and they are wonderful. In the book, Derek shares the story of his garden at Prospect Cottage at the Ness, how it was born in 1985, how it grew with plants and gifts of debris from the sea, and how it looked as a sprightly 9-year-old, full of life and immortality, on the day Derek died from AIDS in 1994. Derek wrote, "Paradise haunts gardens, and some gardens are paradises. Mine is one of them." Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great weekend in the garden, and we'll see you on Monday.